The moment Jack Mitchell saw his boss standing there, frozen in shock with nothing but a towel clutched to her chest, he knew his career was over. What he couldn't have known was how this mortifying accident would completely transform his life, and hers. If you've ever had your world turned upside down in an instant, this story will resonate deep in your soul. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories that remind us how unexpected moments can change everything. Jack Mitchell stared at the ceiling of his small apartment, listening to the gentle breathing of his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, who had crawled into his bed sometime during the night. Dawn was just breaking, casting a soft glow through the thin curtains. Another day of juggling single parenthood and his demanding job as a junior marketing executive at Horizon Enterprises awaited him. 3 years had passed since Emma, his wife and Lily's mother, had lost her battle with cancer. 3 years of learning to be both mother and father, of working twice as hard to provide stability for his daughter while nursing his own broken heart. Jack ran his fingers through his disheveled hair and carefully extracted himself from the bed, trying not to wake Lily. She needed her sleep. Nightmares about losing her daddy too had been plaguing her lately. The morning routine was a well-choreographed dance of making breakfast, packing lunch, finding matching socks, and brushing Lily's unruly curls, so much like her mother's, before dropping her off at school and rushing to work. Jack was perpetually 5 minutes late, perpetually apologetic, and perpetually exhausted. "Daddy, why can't you come to my dance recital today?" Lily asked, her big brown eyes looking up at him as she munched on her toast. Jack's heart sank. The recital. It was today, not tomorrow as he'd thought. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I have a big presentation with Ms. Reynolds today. I can't miss it." "You always have big presentations," Lily mumbled, pushing her plate away. "I know, and I'm sorry. But Ms. Reynolds is counting on me. She's the boss, and if I do well, maybe I can get that promotion. Then we could move to a bigger place, maybe even get a puppy." He tried to sound cheerful, but the disappointment in his daughter's eyes was crushing. "Ms. Reynolds sounds mean," Lily declared. Jack smiled despite himself. "She's not mean, just intense. She expects the best from everyone." Victoria Reynolds was indeed intense. At 35, she was the youngest CEO in the company's history, known for her razor-sharp intelligence and uncompromising standards. Employees called her the Ice Queen behind her back, never to her face, of course. No one knew much about her personal life. She kept those boundaries firmly in place. All they knew was that she lived for her work and expected everyone else to do the same. Jack had been working directly under her for 6 months, and while he respected her business acumen, he found her coldness difficult. She had never once asked about his personal circumstances, despite his occasional need to leave early for Lily's doctor appointments or school events. He'd learned to schedule those things during lunch breaks or to take personal days rather than ask for flexibility. After dropping Lily at school with extra hugs and promises to watch the video of her recital that evening, Jack rushed to the office. The presentation was at 2 p.m., which gave him just enough time to finalize the slides and rehearse his talking points. "Mitchell, my office, now." Victoria's crisp voice cut through the open office space as soon as he stepped off the elevator. Jack's stomach dropped. He followed her into her glass-walled office, acutely aware of the curious glances from his colleagues. "The Henderson account numbers are off," she said without preamble, her steel-gray eyes fixed on her computer screen. "The projections don't match the market research." "I'll check them right away," Jack promised, mentally calculating how this would impact his preparation time for the afternoon presentation. That. "And I need the revised numbers before our meeting with the board this afternoon." She finally looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "This presentation needs to be flawless, Mitchell. The Henderson account could put us ahead of our competitors for the next fiscal year." "I understand, Ms. Reynolds. I won't let you down." She nodded curtly and returned her attention to her screen, a clear dismissal. Jack hurried back to his desk, his mind racing. The morning disappeared in a blur of spreadsheets and calculations. He skipped lunch, working frantically to correct the discrepancies in the data. By 1:30 p.m., he had the revised numbers and updated presentation ready. He emailed the files to Victoria and headed to the conference room to set up. The board members would be arriving soon, and everything needed to be perfect, but Victoria wasn't in the conference room. Jack checked his watch nervously. It wasn't like her to be late for anything, especially not a board meeting. He decided to check her office. Her assistant, Megan, looked up as he approached. "She stepped out about 20 minutes ago. Said she needed to freshen up before the meeting." The board will be here any minute, Jack said, anxiety creeping into his voice. Did she get my email with the revised presentation? I'm sure she did. She probably just went to the executive washroom to touch up her makeup or something, Megan replied with a shrug. Why don't you go check? It's down the hall, last door on the right. Women's room, but the executives have private stalls, so just knock. Jack hesitated, then nodded. The presentation was too important to risk any miscommunication. He hurried down the hallway, rehearsing what he would say. The door to the executive washroom was slightly ajar. He knocked lightly. Ms. Reynolds? The board is arriving soon, and I wanted to make sure you received the updated presentation. No response. He knocked again, a little louder this time. Ms. Reynolds? Still nothing. Concerned that she might not have heard him, Jack pushed the door open slightly. Ms. Reynolds, I apologize for the intrusion, but... The words died in his throat. Victoria Reynolds stood by the sink, her back to the door, completely topless. She had apparently been changing her blouse. At the sound of his voice, she whirled around, her eyes wide with shock, one arm flying up to cover her chest, the other reaching for a towel hanging nearby. For a split second that felt like an eternity, they stared at each other, both frozen in horror. Jack caught a glimpse of a large, jagged scar running across her right side before she managed to cover herself with the towel. I'm so sorry, he stammered, backing out of the doorway. The door was open, and I knocked, but, get out, she hissed, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Jack fled, his heart pounding in his chest. He returned to the conference room, his mind reeling. What had he done? He'd just walked in on his boss, his notoriously private, intimidating boss, in a state of undress. He was going to be fired. There was no question about it. The board members began to arrive, and Jack greeted them mechanically, his thoughts still in turmoil. 5 minutes before the meeting was scheduled to begin, Victoria walked in, impeccably dressed in a crisp white blouse and charcoal suit, her dark hair pulled back in its usual severe bun. If not for the slight flush on her cheeks, no one would have guessed anything was amiss. She didn't look at Jack as she took her place at the head of the table. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for joining us today. Mr. Mitchell will be presenting our strategy for the Henderson account. Jack somehow made it through the presentation, though he had no recollection afterward of what he'd said. The board members seemed impressed, asking thoughtful questions that he answered on autopilot. Victoria remained silent throughout, her expression unreadable. When the meeting concluded and the board members filed out, Jack braced himself for the inevitable. Victoria would ask him to stay behind, and then she would fire him. He would have to tell Lily they couldn't afford a bigger apartment after all. No puppy. Maybe they'd have to move in with his parents in Ohio. Mitchell, Victoria said, her voice cool and professional. A word in my office, please. Here it comes, he thought, following her down the hallway. The other employees averted their eyes, sensing the tension. Everyone knew when someone was being marched to the executioner. Inside her office, Victoria closed the door and moved behind her desk, putting the large piece of furniture between them like a shield. She remained standing, her posture rigid. About what happened earlier, she began, her voice tight. Ms. Reynolds, I am truly sorry, Jack interrupted. It was completely inappropriate. I should have waited for you to respond before opening the door. There's no excuse for my behavior. Victoria's expression flickered with something, surprise, perhaps, at his immediate apology. Yes, well. It was, unfortunate. I understand if you want my resignation, Jack said quietly. Victoria's eyebrows shot up. Resignation? That seems rather extreme for an accident, doesn't it? Now it was Jack's turn to be surprised. You're not firing me? For accidentally walking in on me? No, Mitchell, I'm not firing you. She sighed and sat down, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. Though I would appreciate your discretion about what you saw. Jack nodded quickly. Of course. Absolutely. Victoria studied him for a moment, her gray eyes searching his face. The scar, she said finally. That's what you're really curious about, isn't it? Jack felt his face grow hot. He had noticed the scar, it was impossible not to, but he would never have asked about it. It's none of my business, Ms. Reynolds. No, it's not, she agreed. But people talk, and I'd rather you hear the truth from me than office gossip. She paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. I had a double mastectomy 3 years ago. Breast cancer. The reconstruction, well, it's still a work in progress. Jack felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. I had no idea. That was the point, Victoria said with a small, bitter smile. I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to be the object of pity or speculation. I didn't want cancer to define me or affect how people perceive my ability to do my job. My wife died of cancer, Jack said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. 3 years ago. Ovarian cancer. That's why I'm sometimes rushing out of here. I'm a single dad. My daughter, Lily, she's 6. Victoria's composed facade cracked slightly, genuine surprise showing in her eyes. I didn't know you were widowed. I don't talk about it much at work, Jack admitted. For the same reasons, I guess. I don't want to be the sad widower or have people thinking I can't handle my responsibilities. A moment of understanding passed between them, a recognition of shared pain that transcended their professional roles. Your daughter's recital, Victoria said suddenly. That's today, isn't it? I overheard you on the phone yesterday. Jack nodded, surprised she had noticed. Yes, but it's fine. The presentation was more important. Victoria looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. No, it wasn't. Go to the recital, Mitchell. What? Go to your daughter's recital. The board loved the presentation. The Henderson account is secure. There's nothing else that can't wait until tomorrow. Jack stared at her, unable to believe what he was hearing. Are you sure? I'm sure. Something softened in Victoria's expression. I lost 3 years of my life to cancer, Mitchell. 3 years of being afraid, of focusing on survival instead of living. Don't miss the moments that matter with your daughter. Jack felt a lump forming in his throat. Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Victoria, she corrected him. I think after today, you can call me Victoria. Jack made it to Lily's school just as the recital was about to begin. The look of pure joy on his daughter's face when she spotted him in the audience was worth more than any promotion or raise could ever be. She danced with extra enthusiasm, her eyes finding his repeatedly as if to make sure he was still there. After the recital, as they walked hand in hand to get ice cream, Lily looked up at him curiously. Did the mean boss lady let you come see me? Jack smiled. She's not mean, Lily. She's just been through some hard times, like we have. And yes, she told me to come see you because she thought it was important. Maybe she's not so bad then, Lily conceded, licking her ice cream cone. No, Jack agreed, thinking of the unexpected vulnerability he'd glimpsed in Victoria Reynolds. She's not so bad at all. The next morning, Jack arrived at work to find a small gift box on his desk. Inside was a framed photograph of him and Lily at the recital. One of the other parents must have taken it and shared it with the school. There was a note attached. Some moments are worth capturing. Thank you for your discretion and understanding. VR. Jack placed the frame on his desk, next to his computer. Throughout the day, several colleagues commented on the photo, and for the first time, Jack found himself openly talking about Lily, about being a single parent, about the challenges and joys of raising her alone. To his surprise, his honesty was met not with pity but with support. One colleague offered to babysit sometimes so he could have an evening to himself. Another, a single mom, suggested they arrange playdates for their children. The office environment, which had always felt so separate from his personal life, suddenly became more human. Victoria, too, seemed different. The change was subtle. She was still demanding and exacting in her professional expectations, but there was a new warmth to her interactions. She began to hold regular team lunches, creating space for more personal connections among the staff. She implemented a flexible work policy that allowed parents to adjust their hours around family commitments as long as the work got done. And sometimes, when she thought no one was looking, Jack would catch her gazing at the photo on his desk with an expression of wistful longing. 6 months later, Jack was working late, finalizing a campaign for a new client. Most of the office had emptied out. Lily was having a sleepover at a friend's house, so he had taken the opportunity to get ahead on some projects. A soft knock on his cubicle wall startled him. Victoria stood there, her usual formal attire replaced by jeans and a casual sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger, softer. "You're here late," she observed. "So are you," he countered with a smile. Their relationship had evolved into something approaching friendship over the past months, though they still maintained professional boundaries at work. "I was about to grab some dinner," she said, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "Would you like to join me? Unless you need to get home to Lily." "She's at a sleepover," Jack explained. "Dinner sounds great. I'm starving." They ended up at a small Italian restaurant a few blocks from the office. Over pasta and wine, their conversation flowed easily, touching on work but also venturing into more personal territory. Victoria spoke about her cancer journey, about the fear and isolation she had felt, about her determination not to let the disease define her. The hardest part wasn't the physical pain, she confessed, twirling pasta around her fork. It was feeling so alone. "I pushed everyone away because I didn't want to appear weak. I thought vulnerability was a liability. I did something similar after Emma died," Jack admitted. "I was so focused on being strong for Lily that I didn't let myself grieve properly. I thought if I acknowledged how broken I felt, I might fall apart completely." Victoria reached across the table and briefly touched his hand, a gesture of understanding. "What changed?" Jack thought about it. "Time helped. And Lily, actually. Children have this amazing ability to live in the moment. She taught me how to find joy again." He paused. "And, oddly enough, walking in on you that day changed things too." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Seeing your scar, knowing what you'd been through, it made me realize I wasn't the only one carrying invisible wounds. It made me feel less alone." Victoria's eyes glistened in the candlelight. "That's exactly it. Feeling less alone. That's what I've been missing." As they walked back toward the office where their cars were parked, a light snow began to fall. Victoria tilted her face up to the sky, catching snowflakes on her cheeks and eyelashes. Jack was struck by how beautiful she looked in that moment, unguarded, joyful, alive. "I haven't done this since I was a child," she said, laughing softly. "Just stood in the snow and enjoyed it." "Lily would approve," Jack said, smiling. "She believes in stopping to appreciate the magic in ordinary things." Victoria turned to look at him, snowflakes melting in her dark hair. "Your daughter sounds very wise." "She is," Jack agreed. "She also thinks you